So it should have started now. And yeah, if you're new completely, then we haven't gone too far. We have 64 lines of code, including imports. So I think you should be pretty good. For the most part, I think you mentioned that you did mainly React, right?
Yeah, I'm doing React currently on an internship.
Gotcha. How's that going, brother?
It's pretty cool. It's coming to an end, and I'm kind of sad because now I have to like start the next year of school and
Yeah.
this stuff.
Well, I mean, for the most part, it's cool that you're open to learning new technologies. A lot of people, sometimes they get, fixated on one thing, and I don't know. It's kind of like
Honestly,
limiting.
to be honest, even if I wouldn't use it, I still think that it's pretty cool to like learn
Exactly,
it
yeah.
because it like helps you think differently of stuff.
Yeah. No, you're doing great. I love it. And for the most part, as you can see here, like Compose, there are some things that you could ask that you might not understand, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. So, just like most programming languages, we have that one main function, main activity, etc. So in Android, main activity is basically what gets usually called immediately, right? That's where we start off with our UI and stuff like that. So here we have just this function on create. This is part of the lifecycle. We have a couple different ones on create, on resume, on pause, on stop, etc. For the most part, all we're doing here is setting content, which means like we're going to show something, and then and here we're using the default theme that we have for our app, and within that we have basically what. Let me see if I can split it here so I could show you. If I have anything to show. There it is. So,
quick question. Yeah. I'm guessing that the names after the columns are like type annotations. Is that right?
After the colons, right?
Yeah, like component activity. Is that like a type annotation?
Yeah. So
okay. All right.
If you dive into that, it'll show you like the base class or whatever you're referring.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. Just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a way. This is Kotlin. This is Kotlin programming language, and this is how Kotlin do inheritance.
Yeah.
So new activity inherits from component activity.
Right.
Yeah. I did like 1 year Java in high school. That's all I have. And I've heard that Kotlin is like something like Java-ish.
I mean, the cool thing about Kotlin is that you can do a little more, like in terms of for example, you can say like val number is equal to 10, right? And then I don't know, like it's an integer, right? You don't have to like specify the type. But for the most part, like you'll see this around, and that usually means like this is the type that it is. This is what we're inheriting from. So and sometimes if it's a function, you'll see that at the very end. If it's a function and you see this, that usually means like that's what's gonna get returned. So that, I mean, those are the biggest, I guess, differences that I could come up with right now. But yeah, if you spot anything else, let us know. For the most part, all we're doing here is setting some sort of surface, right? Like this is, think of a div, right, in a way. And then we are adding these modifiers. So fill max size, we're going to be showing something in the entire size that it could take up to the parent. And then we're showing some color, right? And that's pretty much all we're doing. And here, this is where it's getting fun, which is basically like we're calling this composable function called greeting, passing it a parameter, which is this one right here, the string. And then everything inside here is getting sort of called, essentially. So for the most part, this surface right here, and correct me if I'm wrong, the surface right here that you see with the modifier and color, that's the little white background. And then when we call greeting, we have this blue background with the primary color. And the other modifier would be the padding, which is why you see like it's a little pushed in. I'm sure you're familiar with padding and margins. Yeah. So for the most part, pretty straightforward. Now here, this is where it gets pretty fun. And this is where we kind of left off last time, which was we have a row, pretty straightforward, a row. So this right here that you see, all of it. And then within that row, we have a column, which is has these two text items, hello, and Android, as you can see here. And this is using the name that we passed. So the string that we just passed. If we were to modify this to say something else, hello drift, whatever, it'll update and it'll say like, well, eventually it'll say drift. Hello drift. That's just the username I use for everything, but nobody calls me that, just FYI.
It's the preview, Aldo. Remember the preview? That's what we're seeing.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, my bad. You see, this is why Pedro's on the call. So like, I updated here, and if I were to run the app, then yes, we would see that updated. But what we're seeing here is a preview. So if I were to update the preview, then this would update. Thank you, Pedro.
There you go.
This is what happens. This is what happens. And this is the whole point of the group, right? So call me out if I mess up anything. If you have any questions, call it out. The whole point is to learn together. So yeah.
Just so you know, you can run the emulator, and immediately when you write code, it also updates in the app. So it's like a hot run or.
Oh, you can do it with the app running.
Yes.
Oh,
so you
did
can
not know they had that.
Reload. Yeah, okay, that's pretty cool.
I mean, I've seen that in Flutter, but I didn't know.
Yes, it's not like the hot reload in Flutter.
So let's reload
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but let's give it a shot.
I mean, I'll run it anyway and give it a try, yeah. Because I did see that it was building when I changed it here. So maybe it will, we'll see. But yeah, any questions so far? Up to, I guess, here.
No, not really. I was just looking over the link that you guys had on the meeting. I'm just trying to see some of the videos and that's it. But yeah, it seems pretty straightforward.
Yes. So it does work.
All right.
There we go. Pretty cool. So I'll minimize that for now.
Quick question, may I ask what IDE are you using right now for like this Android development stuff?
Android Studio is the primary platform.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything else, but correct me if I'm wrong.
All right, sure.
Let
me look. I can get that.
You could use IntelliJ IDE.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's meant for Compose multi-platform.
Yes.
So it has basically all of the similar stuff you'll see in Android. So in fact, that's what I did. I took everything that we're doing on the Android IDE and I ported everything there.
Right.
And it's actually working, so it's kind of like similar.
Yeah, remember Android Studio is based on IntelliJ. So that's why we have similar interface. We have similar.
Yeah, it looks pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's IntelliJ.
All right, we got bombarded by this light, but I had to load the what we're following to. And I'll link this in case you don't have it. So
I already have it over here.
Oh, then perfect. Yeah. There we go.
I got it.
Yeah, and the last thing we did, which we didn't really do anything else with, was this button. We had this elevated button that we added. It's supposed to have an onClick listener, so some interaction, and then this is a text that it shows right here. Okay. We haven't dived at all into the interaction portion, so I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to cover next, but just a heads up.
Okay.
And I think we were here. This is the last thing. Yeah, onClick, and yeah, we left the route right here. That's the whole solution code, so we're gonna go next. So we're currently on step number 7, which is state. And if you want to talk about this, Pedro, you can. I'll just say a quick summary of what I think it is. I'm assuming we're gonna dive into state management. So like if we were to click the button and we wanted to do something or show something, it'll retain that state, whatever we change with it, right? So if, for example, like the code lab that they usually use a lot of times is a dice roller. If you were to click on the button to roll the dice and then it'll change the number, it retains that new number as opposed to just rolling it and then going back to whatever it was before. Pedro, if you want to add on to that, you can. If not, I'll dive in.
Yeah, well, a state is I'll just use what it says. It's a state of what you're currently having on screen.
Right.
If we kind of see this the GIF that is in the code block, we see that it's some sort of expanded and collapsed composable.
Right.
So show less and show more. So this is what it is. We have to model the state that our data or our composable is going to be displayed during the life cycle of our app.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and this is a good example right here. I mean, it's changing it, the state, right? And then it's retaining it based on, I guess, an onClick. So we'll see what happens down here. Zoom in a bit. And then this is still going to modify the greeting composable function. So for the most part, what I see here is that we have a new var, a variable, that they say not to do, right? So here we have like this random variable that says expanded equals false. And this is how they're using it in the code in this bad example, apparently. So it says onClick expanded is not equal to expanded, right? So like the opposite. And that's basically what they say not to do. I'm assuming because there's some sort of type difference, right? In terms of like the variable itself. I don't think it'll just take a Boolean because, well, we haven't dived into it, but I'm pretty sure recomposition has something to do with it. But
that's correct.
Okay.
You can start writing this. It says don't do it, don't do this, but then you will have to modify it. So there's only one thing we will have to modify here in order for the code to work, which
Right.
is regarding to the recomposition, which is something going on. It's something that happens when we run our app and recompose, and enter, and do what it has to do.
Right. Yeah, and they mention it here. So it basically says that won't work as expected. Setting a different value per the expanded variable will make the compose detect that it had a state change, essentially. So when you're mutating that variable, it doesn't trigger recompositions because it's not being tracked by compose. That's what it's saying here. So it sounds like we need to add this right here, mutable state of function. And then it makes recompose functions that read that state. So essentially, this is what we're gonna not do, actually. Wait, let me see. Don't copy over. It says don't do this. You can't just assign mutable state to a variable instead of composable. Okay. So, because they're setting it inside the actual greeting function, right?
No, that goes wrap around as remember.
I see.
Which is a word you will remember in your entire compose journey, because you have to remember almost everything until you go to the new models. But for now, it's this is what we have.
All right. So let me see. Remember is used to guard against recomposition. So the state does not reset. Okay. So it's not just setting it to a mutable state of, right? But it's also remembering that state that we mutate, essentially. Whatever state that we change it to.
Yeah,
and
it does what it says. It remembers what you have.
Right.
So in this case, we have val expanded equals remember mutable state of false.
Right.
So every time a composition can happen 1 or 100,000 a lot of times. So this is what it does. It will remember the latest value you have at any state of the composition.
Right.
Any moment the composition. So so yeah, you can start writing.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start putting that in there. So where's my Android Studio? There it is. So we're just gonna go ahead and add that. I don't think I need to import anything. This should be standard, right? So expanded equal to. We're gonna wrap this in a remember. Oh, I completely misspelled that. Remember. I'm going to say mutable state of false. So it's just a Boolean mutable state. And I have auto import on, so I don't have to worry about that. And then down here, they wanted us to, I guess, onClick change the expanded to, whatever it is that we wanted to, the opposite essentially. So this. And oh yeah, you can't do that. You have to, it's a mutable state of, right? So you have to set the value itself, right?
No, you have to make a var instead of a val, because a val would change. So you have
Right.
to a variable, not a final.
Well, the var itself, yeah, it's mutable. You're right, but if I'm not mistaken, val only retains the object. So wouldn't this remember be? Oh, it's just mutable state, I guess. Because what I was thinking is that since it's retaining mutable state, the object itself, then I think the value you could just modify it.
I recall why is that. It's because well, you should use the allocation if you want to do that. So instead of typing val expand equals remember, you could do val expand by remember. So if you replace the equals for by,
Here
it
instead.
will let you do it. Yes. Otherwise, you have the state and you have to access dot value equals not expanded.
Okay.
That's
well, for now, we'll just do that. Yes. It's not equal. Sorry.
Expanded, I think dot value.
What was that?
Expanded dot value.
Yeah, to get the Boolean. And then this is, yeah, you have to put that value here too. Okay. And it does, well, it's saying that to use val for now, but and I'm assuming that's because of that thing that we spoke about, which was basically that the actual type itself, being mutable state, we're only changing whatever's inside of it, which is the Boolean. So here we're saying expanded, whatever the value is within it, false in this case, is equal to true. And that's what we're setting here. Let me go back to the guide just in case, because I might have missed something else, but yeah. So the compose function will automatically be subscribed to the state. Cool. Yeah, and in order to change the state, you might have noticed a button has a parameter called onClick. Yeah. Yeah, and that's basically what we did. And then we wanted to show the basically based on the value, right? So like expanded that value, we check that. If the value is true, we put show less. So it's been clicked already. If the value is false, we show more. So that's what they want us to do with the text. And let's see what happens. So say show less, else show more. Let's go ahead and rerun this and see what it shows. Let me close it. All right. So click it, show less. So it's working. Otherwise, I think we wouldn't be able to do that. If I'm not mistaken. Like if we were to try the bad version of it that they said not to do. None of that. We could just do the var just to see what it looks like.
I think Aldo Study will tell you that you have to wrap the mutable state of within remember.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It probably will show like something. But in this case, as you can see, like the onClick, right? We're doing it right technically, right? Like you're saying, oh, the opposite of, but it doesn't show anything because it's not retaining that state. So does that make sense to you guys before?
Oh yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Any questions that we have outstanding that Pedro can get answered?
So far,
Not
so
really.
good.
What was that?
Not really, not for me.
So far, so good.
Awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and keep going real quick. So we did that. We ran it. It's doing it. Obviously, it's not expanding anything because we haven't done anything to the UI. But for the most part, I think this is, yeah, we have everything in place for this. Now expanding the item. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to add an additional variable, extra padding. And then we're basically going to do a quick check. So if expanded is true, it's going to be 48 dp. If expanded is false, 0 dp. And I'm assuming we're just going to add that as a modifier for our, where is it? Here. For our column padding. Yeah. So let's go ahead and add that real quick. So extra padding. Equal to if. That's why I love Kotlin. Do all this right here. Expanded. Wait. Wait. Is it DP like that? Yeah, we have to specify what it is, right? Or not?
If extended dot value.
I keep messing that up. All right, there it is. Extra padding. And then we're basically saying that to the actual column here. If I'm not mistaken, let me double check.
Yeah, but your column, I think your column is going.
Oh, within the modifier, right?
Uh-huh.
Within the modifier. So here we have the row with the 24 padding or whatever, and then the modifier will have a weight of 1 float, and then the padding here for the bottom specifically. So let's go ahead and add it here. We got to add it to the end. So padding. Bottom specifically, extra padding. Cool. I don't know why this keeps doing that, but that's fine. And then let me make this small and this smaller. All right. You should be able to still see it more or less, but anything else that we're missing? I think that's it. Yeah. So let's give that a try because padding is getting calculated here anyway. So there's nothing else I think that we need to add. And quick question. So, well, I can't even see it because it's fill max. So let me double check that is what I'm. Yeah. So everything else is not. And then I think the other code was.
You have.
It's probably this, right? This modifier that's throwing it off.
Yeah, the fill max size. That's what is filling it up.
Yeah. Okay. Try to like that for now, and then rerun it. All right. Expand. It's doing it. It's doing it. Cool. And then the other question I had was, and maybe it'll get answered here, but with recomposition, you mentioned that it happens a lot of times, right? That means that this function right here, this composable function, gets recalled a lot of times during recomposition, essentially.
Yes.
So yeah.
It doesn't happen all the time. We don't control it, but
right.
it could happen. If you're rendering something animated, if you're scrolling and you have I don't know a user interface where you have to drag up and down and move other elements according to their position, that will be recomposing lots of times.
Okay.
But in this case, it's very simple, but it won't recompose.
Yeah. No. And I'm sure there's performance issues later on if you get something more complicated. So cool. So that makes sense to me. Any questions so far? I mean, seems like pretty straightforward, but wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and I think, but the remember also has to do with the recomposition because like every time there's a new value, the page gets redrawn. So I think just to piggyback on what Pedro mentioned,
Right.
Alongside all of the other activities that Pedro mentioned, any new value or anything that's introduced in the code, Compose redraws everything.
Right.
So I think that also causes a concern on my end, because I'm like, okay, how is that efficient? Is you have to redraw. Let's say you have 500,000 lines of code,
Mm.
and it has to be redrawn again for the 500,000. I mean, maybe certain portions of it.
Yeah, the compose, the compiler, I'm not sure if it's the compiler or the runtime, is smart enough to know which parts of your application can recompose and which ones won't. There's a really good talk. I will check it out and let it in the
Yep.
chat, so you can listen from the Googlers directly how all these recomposition phases works. But for now, we need to learn the basics of
Yeah.
this.
And yeah, I'm sure there's some good explanation, and I'm sure that talk probably has it regarding why they decided to go this route. I mean, for the most part, from what I've heard, like the whole point of this is to be more efficient for developers. But you know, there's definitely probably some areas that they improved that we can't see under the hood. But
okay, thank you, Pedro.
And I'll use that link to drop it in the meeting group as well, in case anybody else doesn't have it.
Yeah, it's really complicated. There's still lots of things in terms of performance that I don't master well, but you have to experience and trial and error to learn it.
Right. All right, cool. So looking at this, right. Yeah, we did that. And then they're showing 2 items here, but I'm not, am I blind? I'm not seeing 2 items here, unless they call it like a greeting function in 2 different, in a column or something outside of this. But apparently, yeah, it'll retain it for the specific composable function or item, I guess. And it'll say like, if it'll keep the state essentially for each item, is what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
So even if they're,
duplicate the line in the main in onCreate, you only have one greeting.
right.
If you just duplicate it, you will have 2.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm interested in trying that. So let's go ahead and run it real quick. We'll do, I guess, a column, right? A column of both of these would be fine. And then for the most part, I don't think we need to specify anything here. But let me do this, run this with the name of, I don't know, Compose. Oh, and just a heads up, like this highlighted in blue, this is basically just the same as the actual parameter, but we're actually typing it out. If you're uploading your code to GitHub and you don't have this, it doesn't show that the parameter is named name. But if you type it out here, it makes it easier probably for reviewers to see. If you're not familiar with Kotlin, that's something that I've seen anyway.
Yeah, all the other use of the name arguments is, for instance, if the greeting function had 3 strings, like
Right.
first name, last name, and address, for
Right.
instance. So you will start typing string. And with Kotlin, you have the name arguments, and it is easy for you to know which what value you're going to assign and which value your function is going to use.
Right.
It's easier for you to know where what you're typing, where you're passing into the function goes.
Right. No, and even if you were doing something like a default, right? Default string. Right? You could always specify that here. So like, yeah, this is, I mean, in case you didn't you're not familiar with Kotlin, but it's pretty fun, yeah. Oh, it looks like it's working. It looks like it's running. Let me bring this down. It's expanding both on their own states. So that's pretty cool. Learning something new. I wonder how recomposition works in that sense. You're calling the same function multiple times. But I guess that's how you do lists as well. You would, implement a type of item into some sort of dynamic list, and it would recompose all of that. So, all right. No questions. I'm going to go next. State hoisting. That's a fun word. So basically, state that is read or modified by multiple functions should live in a common ancestor. It's called state hoisting. Okay. So it basically avoids duplicating state. And the source of truth belongs to whoever creates and controls that state. I need to see an example of this to get it. So here we have some composable function called onboarding screen. And then we have this var. Oh, I see the by remember. This var right here that has should show onboarding. And it is remembering the state and everything. But it's saying that it should be hoisted. So here, this is being used for the onClick. It starts off as true. And when you click the button, it sets it to false. Right? It says, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Now, what does the actual hoisting look like? So, and do they want us to follow this? Oh, yeah, they do. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this to our...
Yeah, if you read a little bit there in the page, they will tell you why is that, why we should do state hosting.
Okay, let me add this in, and then we'll take a look. So it's fine, and then I'll add the preview here. Let me copy this one over. All right, and that should be updating soon. Some issues. Oh, I see. It didn't auto input. Let's try that. Cool. And this.
Yeah, I had the same problem. If it's ambiguous, it's not going to auto import.
Yeah, the reason is because you have to import one for get and one for set when you do the by delegation. So
yeah,
there's two different imports.
Cool. So yeah, showing the preview right here. And then if we were to run it, I guess, I mean, we're not going to run it because we don't have it here. But I'm assuming something would happen normally, or maybe not. But it might be just best practice. But let's read on and see what happens. So yeah, we add the preview. Column can be configured to display its contents in the center of the screen. So they do want us to... Oh, wait. No, yeah, we saw the preview already. Cool. So it's using the by keyword instead of equals. There's a property delegate that saves you from typing .value every time. You mentioned it. Look at that. So when the button is clicked, it's set to false, right? In Compose, you don't hide UI elements. Instead, you simply don't add them to the composition. So they're not added to the UI tree that Compose generates. Okay. So here we have, for example, we have some composable function called myApp. has a surface, and then in here it says if it should show onboarding, goes here. Otherwise, go to greeting. Okay. And then they're asking, where does this come from? I'm assuming they're referring to the actual should show onboarding. Yeah.
Yes, it's the value is a variable that you have defined within the onboarding screen.
Right.
They will ask you to move it outside of the onboarding screen composer,
Okay.
and that is a state hosting.
Okay. Oh, I see. That makes sense. Well, I want to see it in action, but that makes sense in my head so far. Okay, so we don't have access to it here, obviously, and then it says instead of somehow sharing the value of the state with its parent, we hoist the state. So we simply move it to a common ancestor that needs to access it, right? So they want us to move the content of my app, so this, into a new composable called greetings, right here. And then we adapt the preview to call greetings method instead. So they actually want us to do this. Okay. They didn't want us to copy this, but they want us to copy down here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Instead of doing, this is greetings. Okay. It sounds like this.
Let's do it from scratch. Don't copy paste.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So they want a new composable private function, greetings, plural, and then we're going to have just a modifier being passed. Or I guess we initialize it there. And then we have a list of string with world and compose. So let's start with that. And we'll do that right under this.
Composable. Greetings screen if we want to. So we have onboarding screen, and then we will have greetings screen.
Greetings screen. All right, cool. Let's do that. And then here, this is where we had that's the modifier.
A modifier and a list of strings.
But they want us to do this right here. And then a list of strings. Does have, oh, they just called it names. Or, oh, let me pass the type just in case. Let's do this, list of string. Going to be equal to a list of two strings, world and compose, I guess. I saw there. And then they want a column where we're going to use basically the modifier that we pass to that column with some padding, vertical, and then we're going to do a for loop. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So for each, so basically it's saying in this greeting screen, essentially, we pass a modifier, this two names, and then we create a column. And then that column, for every name, we're going to basically show the greeting composable that we had from before with a new name. So let's do that. Collection. Column. Modifier is equal to modifier dot padding. I want a vertical DP. And then we're going to do that function. So for every name, and names, for greeting. And we're going to just pass the name that it is. Cool. And let me see if they wanted to add anything else. I think a preview. Greetings preview. So they want to do a 320 dp width with a show background true. Okay. Oh wait, we already have a greeting preview. Oh no, greetings. All right, so let's do greetings screen like you mentioned. So let's do this. Show background is true. Width dp is 320. Possible. Greeting. Okay. So it's going to be the same theme. So compose, blah, blah, blah. Compose, there it is. I feel like I'm fat fingering all the keyboard keys right now. Greeting screen. And we don't have to pass anything since everything's already being defined here. Every time we say this equal, it's setting that as a default value. So we're going to leave it there. And then we can see the preview here. Greeting screen. Cool. All right. And let's see what else they wanted us to do. Oh, they wanted us to call that immediately from my app, I guess. I'm assuming that's their... let me see. I don't think we had to create that before, did we? No. I'm assuming they just mean like the our main application or this class or whatever. But let's take a look. Let's do it here. Greetings. There we go. Calling that. And then what else? What else? And then they want a top level preview for the actual activity that we could test the behavior on. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and create a new preview for... Wait, let me see something. I think they actually mean to add a new function, no? Because this would be like a separate function from the...
No, what they wanted you to do is create another composable, but it's called my app.
Oh, they actually did want...
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's
and
do that.
then you have to replace everything that is within the create and put it there.
Let's do that. Also, I noticed that multiple functions start with capital as well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Go to modifier. All right, so let's call greetings here. Greeting screen here. This would be wrong in that case, but I'm assuming they want us to call it my app in this case, so we'll do that for now. And then we'll create a preview for that. Quick question. I mean, this is probably like a preference, but where do you put your previews in the class? Do you put them right underneath or like on?
Yeah, usually at the bottom.
All the way at the bottom?
All at the bottom, yes.
Okay. That's what I've been doing, but I don't even know what order I'm doing in. So let's go ahead and do that. Preview. And let me see what type of preview they wanted for my app. I guess just a regular, like using the theme, calling my app, fill max size. Cool.
You don't, I mean, that's if you want, and if you want to wrap it, but you don't really need to wrap it within your theme. You will get the default, whatever colors they have as default for.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you could just call my app directly, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Like for the preview itself. I gotcha.
Yes, but my app should have the theme inside.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But ideally, it's just at the top level of entire composable.
Okay. So instead of like wrapping it every single time and every preview, essentially you would set it up at the top level of the composable. Like this is my app, right? So my app itself, this one should have the reference to the theme, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I could do that by doing it here.
Yeah, but your other composables don't have it, so.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense at that point.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's good to know. But add that theme, and then I guess I'll drop this in here. And they wanted us to fill max size. Yeah,
I'm gonna plug
questions?
in my laptop. I'll be right back. I gotta plug in my laptop.
Alrighty, sounds good.
Right.
Modifier, fill, size. Boom. And that's what they wanted. And now they want to add the logic. I see. So basically within my app now, we're going to go ahead and check if this state is true or not. Since we sort of separated this outside of the onboarding screen, so that should show onboarding used to live in the onboarding screen function. Now it lives outside of that in a parent function. And that's how we're able to do it. Instead of passing it back up to the parent, we're letting the parent know that this is something that we should retain, and then we're passing it down to the children. So let's go ahead and do that. My app. Should show onboarding. I remember. State of true. And here we're going to say, let me make sure. What's happening here? The surface modifier. We're just going to pass that. Cool. And here we're going to say if should show onboarding. Then we're going to go ahead and opt for the onboarding screen, not the preview. Onboarding screen. Otherwise, let's go for the greeting screen.
There's something I always do. All my previews, I'll make them private. Because when you start using your composables somewhere else, you also get the preview as a suggestion.
Yeah, I think I have this one open, like public down here, and then also these. That makes sense. I see. All right, so this should be everything they wanted. Let me double check. Up to this point, at least. All right, so we also need to share show onboarding with the onboarding screen, but we're not going to pass it directly. Instead of letting onboarding screen mutate our state, it would be better to notify us when the user clicked. Okay. Oh, so that, yeah, this is where it gets trickier, I guess. So let me see. How do we pass events up, right? By passing callbacks down. So callbacks are functions that are passed as arguments to other functions and get executed when the event occurs. Okay. Makes sense. So we're going to add a function parameter to the onboarding screen, defined like this. And that allows us to mutate the state of my app. Okay. I haven't looked at the solution yet. I just literally had this. So I guess we could try to do it, as they define it here, and then we get messed up or whatever. So I'm assuming here is where they want to add the parameter itself, like the onContinue click. Now we're passing down. We should be passing the value, right, Pedro? So the actual value itself of should show onboarding.
Yeah, what they want us to learn here is that a state goes down and events go up.
Right.
That is UDF, if I recall correctly, they call unidirectional data flow. That's what it refers to, UDF.
Okay.
So if the state is the only thing that will enter your function, and events, in this called callbacks, is how the data flow out your composer. That's what this is referring to.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what they're doing here. I mean, it seems like with the parameter, whatever we pass, right, it'll turn it into some return unit, which would be in that case the event that you mentioned.
The unit is that it doesn't return anything.
Right.
unit is like void.
Yeah.
It doesn't return at all.
Yeah, it just does something essentially. So let's go ahead and do that. And where was I? My app. Okay, so here, so we had it. So we're gonna go to onboarding screen, and then this one already has that default modifier, but we're gonna go ahead and add, or I guess this is what I think they wanted us to do. On continued.
That's correct.
Continue clicked. And it's gonna be basically one of these bad boys. Yeah. And up here, they want us to add the, let me specify, should show onboarding. Boolean required this thing.
No, the on continue click should go in between braces, curly braces, because that's a function.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
You're passing in a function to that function.
Okay, so I'm assuming we have to specify something outside of this. Because
right now,
like right now we don't have enough, is what I think is happening, right?
no. You don't have to. You just are going to change the should onboarding to false, and that's it. You will never go back to show onboarding true.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So basically, right here, you just pass that function, which would be like the work essentially, and we're setting it to false, which would be, well, I guess here we just say false. The preview, what is this? Oh, on continue clicked. I'll just say, I guess. Oh, sorry. These.
That one work. That one works too. When you have only one function, you can just do the curly braces. I don't recall what is how they call it, but you could have it like you had it before.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and run it and see what happens. Let me. All right, so there's a device. Keep saying that. I'm pretty sure I need to fix my emulator. So if I click continue, it should show greeting screen, which is the new two-name list that we created, or column. All right, there it is. It shows them. They're retaining state. So it sounds like it worked.
You know what is the funny part? Rotate the screen.
Rotate. Doesn't that recompose everything?
Rotate the device.
I'm pretty sure that'll recompose. Let's see. Okay, let me rotate it, and let me drag it over here. I have to activate my rotation.
Yeah, it's not rotating.
So, does this thing even work? Man, this emulator sucks. 1 second. So let me use one of my older ones.
Yeah, the older ones works better.
Those are the OGs. All right, so should be running soon. But yeah, I heard. Well, I mean, if it's anything like managing, regular views app, then rotating it should have some changes. That's for sure, or reactivate some things. So let's get back to the screen. We're here. I'm gonna rotate it after and make sure, yeah, auto rotates on. And it goes and shows the first screen again, which I'm assuming, and this is an assumption, is that we're not keeping track of the state outside of this at an even more overview level. But
yeah,
I'm not sure.
the technicality of the Android world is that, remember, won't survive configuration change.
Oh,
rotation,
really?
Yes, rotation is a configuration change. On Android, every time you rotate the screen, it destroys everything and recreates it. But for Compose, there's something called remember savable, and that will survive configuration changes, and this will help. But that's
That's for later, but it's great to know. That's great to know. All right. I mean, there can't be much more, right? To this guide here for number 8. So let's see. Yeah, the preview, they just want us to pass that empty function, right? Do nothing. Full code so far. It sounds like that's it. That's the end of that. Okay, cool. So I was gonna stop it there anyway, but any questions? Anything that stood out to you? What was the best part? Let's hear it.
Not really. It really looks like. Honestly, I'm kind of relieved that it isn't too different from React. Like all the breaking down components, like life cycle stuff, it's very similar, to be honest. And
I think
like
you could transition well, yeah, if you ever did it.
the fact that like you're hoisting state, that's like a big thing in React. Like having your functional components and your stateful components. So
Right.
like having a state where it's stored in the parent, it's like really nice. And I
I'm
found
assuming
out
you
that
have a different word, right? Than hoist. What's the word in React?
we simply like we don't really call it hoisting. We simply call it like that's or like diagram. It's like a good design pattern for React. We just call it like it's a design pattern.
Okay.
And yeah, we just have like container components that are always like hoisting the state for like the smaller components, and the smaller components only contain like layout options and stuff. They don't contain any state. They only
Right.
contain like what the stuff looks like. Then the parent component contains how this like the changes that can be made.
Which I think is what they want here anyway, right, Pedro? Like
Yeah, it's like really good for like separation of concerns. It's
right.
like really nice if you like have a bug or something. It's like better
Yeah,
to
it's
track your
easier.
state like that.
Yeah, eventually when things get complicated, mostly all your state will be in the view model,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
because the view model is the component that survives configuration changes, and it's like the part that integrates your data communication with your UI. So lots of things will go to the view model, and usually the view model is outside of your composables. And that's why you have to do state hosting.
But you do it to the view model.
Yes, the state goes in and the events go out. The state will send, as I said before, state will send data in your composable, and all the data that you need from your composable to go out goes within events.
Okay.
Yeah. In React, you simply pass like the callbacks as props down, and you can basically get the same result.
Nice. Yeah, no, it sounds like, I mean, there's a lot of similarities, especially nowadays, you know. I'm assuming if I were to look at Flutter now, it looks a lot more like this too.
Flutter is exactly, it's something very similar like this to this.
There you go. So eventually we're all going to be just one big platform. So we'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had. I'm going to stop the recording real quick.